Hey everyone, ToonySA here, back with another video. It's been a hot minute for two reasons. Number one, I've not been able to post a video because, yep, my arm's not working again. It doesn't feel that long ago that my arm wasn't working earlier in the year. So I'm not able to hold a controller. The only games I can play are keyboard only games such as Slay the Spire. But the other reason is that I've also started a new job, so that's also consuming a lot of my time. Just imagine starting a new job with only one arm while also still under contract with your old job. So I'm doing two jobs at the same time. That's why the only content you've seen over the past couple of weeks has been highlight videos, and unfortunately I've got to wear this damn thing for at least another 2 weeks. But then after that I should be able to return to more normal content. I'd also like to thank everyone for subscribing while I've been away. We are approaching 1100 subscribers, which is absolutely fantastic considering I can't even post any new material. But anyway, let's get on with the video for today. Today is a very shameful video for me to post, but you know, I wanted to put out a video. I wanted to give you guys some content that's not just a highlight video, so this is all I could come up with. Unpopular, I think you've heard of him. He did a video a while ago reacting to your unpopular opinions, so I thought, genius idea, I'm sure you'll agree. Why not react to his reaction of your unpopular opinions? I've never watched this video before, so these opinions will also be new for me. So without further ado, let's get on it.
Today I'm going to be reading your Crash Bandicoot unpopular opinions and telling you whether or not you're right or wrong. I'm just kidding, these are opinions, you can have your own opinions, and who am I to say whether or not you're right or wrong? I wasn't even born when the original trilogy came out.
True.
Let's get into it. After the Wrath of Cortex, Crunch became pointless. He always felt like a third wheel to me.
Okay, so Crunch being a third wheel after the Wrath of Cortex. Yes, I mean, Wrath of Cortex was a game that wasn't very popular. It wasn't that well received. I'm not sure how well it sold. It probably sold all right, being the first Crash game on the PlayStation 2. I'd have to check the actual figures, but it didn't land well with critics. And what game developers will often do is, instead of thinking about all the things that were positive additions to a game, a sequel, they'll just write it all off as though it was all bad and that it all needs to be scrapped and that it all needs to be forgotten about. Now, Crunch does obviously appear in future games like Crash Nitro Kart, etc. But you're right, he is a minor character, he is a bit of a third wheel, and his personality just gets relegated to sort of a comic relief Mr. T style character. Let's see what Louis says.
I would agree and disagree. I wouldn't call him pointless because I do like him being part of the main squad. He's a nice addition to the good side. I like him being there with Crash, Coco, Polar, but I will agree that after the Wrath of Cortex, after, you know, being the main villain in that game and then teaming up with the Bandicoots at the end, he didn't really do too much else. Like, yeah, in Nitro Kart, he was on the Bandicoot side, so he was in all the cutscenes. He was in tag team racing and he was, you know, standing around the park with some of the other characters and you could do challenges for him and stuff, but that's all he really was. Then there were games like Twinsanity where he wasn't even in the game, unless you're counting that one cutscene where he's holding a birthday cake.
So it looks like me and Louis agree on this one. And yeah, this cutscene always bothered me in Twinsanity because Crunch was huge in the Wrath of Cortex, but somehow they've made him look tiny next to Tiny. I don't know if that's just a visual pun that they were going for, but I don't know, it just feels a bit weird for his character. I mean, look, actually, now you can see to scale, Crunch is only about a head and a half taller than Polar. That makes absolutely zero sense. Right, he should be as large as Tiny is right here.
He doesn't have any dialogue or anything, he's not really part of Twinsanity, and then in Crash of the Titans he quite literally gets frozen at the beginning of the game and is frozen all the way up until the very end. I'd say the next big role he had, unless I'm forgetting something, is Mind Over Mutant, because he does get possessed and you have to go and save him and then you have a boss fight with him. So while I wouldn't say he was pointless, because I do like him being a character in the Crash.
Mind Over Mutant is one of the few Crash games that I've never played, so yeah, I had no idea he had a slightly larger role in that game. Maybe I should play her at some point, but I haven't heard good things about it.
He doesn't really have that big of an impact after Wrath of Cortex. Wrath of Cortex and Crash of the Titans are actually great games. I've always said that if people liked Warped, then you like Wrath of Cortex because it's the same fucking game.
Now, I can see why that would be an unpopular opinion. As I already said, Wrath of Cortex had mixed reviews, and I think it was mainly due to having an abundance of vehicle levels, but also like Crash somehow felt a little bit harder to control and more slippery and floaty in Wrath of Cortex than he did in Warped, which is weird because it was kind of like it was weird actually. You think about it. Spyro the Dragon controlled so well on the PlayStation 1. Enter the Dragonfly comes along, he controls like absolute ass. The same can be said for Crash, except I wouldn't say that Crash controlled as poorly as Spyro did in Wrath of Cortex, but he didn't control as good as well as he did in Crash Warped. Like, I've come to enjoy Wrath over the past year because I did the relics, and I think it's a great game to get the relics on. The game 100% and casually though, I don't think it's more than a 6 out of 10. When I was playing the relics, I'd bump that up to a 7 out of 10, but it's a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad game in my opinion, but it's also not one of the better games in the series. And regarding Titans, I enjoyed Titans. I thought it was funny, I thought it was different. Wasn't a Crash game, let's get that out of the way. It was combat orientated and the combat could get quite repetitive, but the game wasn't particularly long either, so for me it didn't really overstay its welcome. I wouldn't want another Titans game in the future, but I enjoy Crash of the Titans for what it was. I would equally say it's a 6 or 7 out of 10 game, personally.
Is Crash Warped? I think it tried its very best to be Crash Warped and failed. Like, yeah, they both have loads of vehicle levels, they both have shit vehicle levels, but the Wrath of Cortex has more shit vehicle levels. And then the controls...
Yes, he gets it.
And then the controls, like Crash's jump is a lot floatier in Wrath of Cortex. I think the character models and the cutscenes in Wrath of Cortex are just so strange. So I think Wrath of Cortex tried to copy Warped, but I don't think it did a very good job.
The similarities for Enter the Dragonfly actually just also extend to what Lewis just said about the character models being a little bit weird. This game has really weird character models, and so does Enter the Dragonfly. Why were two of the most popular PlayStation mascots butchered in so many ways and so many similar ways?
Doing it. I wouldn't call it a bad game though, so I'm disagreeing with the last part saying that it's the same game. CTR Nitro-Fueled was killed by Activision because they refused to fix the obvious load time, split screen and online issues that were there from day one. Along with the snuck-in microtransactions, lack of interesting post-launch content, Grand Prix were a great idea but executed horribly, and catering to Reddit instead of the old fans that have been playing the original CTR for the past 2 decades.
I'm not as well versed in Crash Nitro-Fueled as Lewis is. I've probably put only 30 or 40 hours into it. I beat the adventure mode and done a couple of side content stuff. I missed most of the Grand Prix. I kind of joined towards the end. I think the one before last Grand Prix when I started playing. However, that comment, I'm not really sure how that would be an unpopular comment. I probably agree with like 85% of it. I disagree that Grand Prix were poorly made. I thought the Grand Prix were actually a really cool idea. Microtransactions didn't really bother me because I knew I was going to put a lot of hours into the game so I could just unlock content. And, you know, having the ability to unlock content in this day and age is getting rarer and rarer. You know, Activision could have just made it so that you had to purchase all of these skins. But no, you could actually just unlock the skins, and I love that. I love being able to unlock things in games, even if there's a lot of things to unlock and it's going to take a while. You know, Crash Nitro-Fueled is the kind of game that you can just sit down, play like a couple of races in one day, leave it and come back to it another time, and gradually you'll just end up unlocking everything. So I don't think there's really all that much controversial there. So let's see what Lewis says about it.
I don't think it's an unpopular opinion that Activision killed CTR by just taking Beanox off the project before they could fix the load times or fix online issues. They did a really good job of bringing content and Grand Prix to the game for as long as they did, but Activision really should have let them work on the game for a lot longer. They should have fixed all the issues. They should have added a lot more, you know, online modes. They should have...
Again, I think everyone agrees with that, so that's why I wouldn't really describe this opinion as unpopular. I'd say most fans agree with most of that comment.
Allowed them to make a new patch for the PS5 and Series X. They should have brought the game to PC. They definitely killed the game early by doing those things. I mean, if anything, just bring it to PC and then let modders let the game live on.
Well, yeah, Lewis and I eventually made a video probably about 6 or 7 months ago now, just talking about how Nitro-Fueled is never coming to the PC. So just to reiterate, that ship has sailed. It's not coming to PC. Get the Carters 2. I don't think it's as good as CTR, but it's a good game. It's a good game. It's going to fill a kind of void that CTR is leaving while we're waiting for it to be brought back. Eventually. Regarding the modders comment, there's no way that those greedy assholes at Microsoft or Activision, etc., would ever let modders have a field day with CTR. The same way Nintendo would never let the modders ever touch Mario. It's just not something they would ever be willing to do. Even if they never intend to release another Crash racing game ever again, they're too petty and spiteful to ever want fans to be able to create their own fun. It must be sold.
It to PC and then let modders let the game live on. Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant are good games, both in terms of graphics and gameplay, as much as it changed its genre. You know, one thing
I won't say much about this one because I've already addressed it earlier. This comment was already brought up earlier, so you already know my opinion on this one. Let's see what Lewis thinks about it.
The thing I find hilarious is when people say Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant were good games, just not good Crash games.
And regarding Titans, I enjoyed Titans. I thought it was funny. I thought it was different. Wasn't a Crash game, let's get that out of the way. It was...
I always find that hilarious. But yeah, I think both definitely have problems even in terms of gameplay. Like Titans, I wasn't the biggest fan of how they, you know, just forced you to fight the same Titans in an area. You know, and they put those red barriers up and you had to fight them over and over again. They kept spawning the same exact enemies and then you could continue. And they did it way too much. It's almost like they did it just to extend the length of the game.
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly. Like I said, because Titans is not a very long game anyway, it didn't overstay its welcome for me. I would just do 1 or 2 levels each day. However, like what they could have done really to mix it up is just have more arenas where different Titans showed up, so there was more of a variety of different circumstances that could be put in front of the player, you know, because then you'd have to figure out the best way to get around the different Titans. But maybe that's to do with like hardware things, you know, having to import all those different models in at the same time probably was quite difficult for something like the PS2 to handle.
I do like how both of them too much. It's almost like they did it just to extend the length of the game. Graphically, I do like how both of the games look. Not my favorite art style of, you know, all the Crash games, but I think the graphics of them are fine. So this one is from Abdul. It's a
Abdul, what's this wall of text, bro?
So this one is from Abdul. It's a pretty long thing, so I'm not going to read the whole thing out because, you know, it would take too long for the video. But I'll put the whole thing on the screen so you can pause it if you want to read it all. The one thing...
So I had to pause the video so that I could give this a kind of summary from Abdul's long comment. I'm friends with Abdul. I speak to him in the Discord that we have. And I know that he's a big fan of Crash 4. He does quite a few speedruns of Crash 4. And here's the thing, I'm going to say something that I've said to a lot of people before. I think Crash 4 is predominantly a good game, just with annoying things in it. Like, so let's go to some of the things that he mentions. He talks about the story being simple and cliche. Yep, that's very normal for a Crash game. I think that Twinsanity was great for what it was because it tried to really expand upon the story. But fundamentally, I'm looking for a fun platformer. I would rather Crash to Insanity have been a great platformer than a funny story, if that makes sense. You know, it's here now, it is what it is, it'll do. But I'm pretty sure most people are in the same boat there. He mentions about backstories being a little bit darker, nothing to disagree with there. The mask abilities are fun and varied and add extra challenge. I agree with that as well. I personally suck with some of the masks, in particular the time freeze one, but that's a me issue. That's not a game issue. I just need to be better with time. It is a very hard game and that can turn off a lot of people, so I don't think like the hardcore Crash fans should be too judgmental on it, because this is, in my opinion, much harder than even Crash 1. That's just my opinion. I've done Crash 1 100%, both on the Insane version and also on the original. I think Crash 4, and I'm not even finished on Crash 4 yet at the time of recording this video, I'm about 3/4 of the way through it. I still think already up to this point Crash 4 is much harder than anything else that I've ever done, and it can be frustrating just because of the sheer length of the levels. So I hope that going back to Wrath of Cortex earlier that had mixed reviews, Crash 4 I would say is generally more liked than disliked, and I hope they can learn from the mistakes of Crash the Wrath of Cortex, where they can find the things that were really fun and good from Crash 4 and put them into Crash 5. For me, that's not too many hidden boxes. I'm not a fan, but just tone down the gems, get rid of inverted mode, or at least make it just some kind of bonus unlockable that has nothing to do with completion. And yeah, I'm signing up for Crash 5 at that point.
So you can pause it if you want to read it all. The one thing I'll say about this one that I disagree with is the music being some of the best in the series.
Oh, I forgot about the music. Well, given the way that Lewis just started that sentence, I think I'm going to end up agreeing with him. Most of the music is forgettable to me. I don't really remember most of it. However, when it slaps, it really slaps. There's a couple of moments in the streams that I've done where I've just sat and enjoyed the music. One of my favorites is the dynamic music that happens when you get on rail sections, particularly in the pirate world. I really like the ditty that plays along as you slide down the rope. But yeah, sorry, I'm interrupting Lewis here. I want to see what he says.
I don't think there's a single Crash game that has a bad soundtrack, unless I'm forgetting one of the weirder games like, I don't know, Crash Boom Bang. I can't remember the soundtrack of that, but let's be honest.
I've also only played Crash Boom Bang for about 30 minutes at my cousin's house when I was about 9 years old, so I don't know how controversial of a comment that is, but I'm guessing that's probably true.
Boom Bang, I can't remember the soundtrack of that, but let's be honest, the soundtrack is probably the best thing about Crash Boom Bang. But I think the whole series has such good music that it's hard to live up to it in a way. I think the Crash 4 soundtrack is good, but it doesn't have as many memorable songs from other games in my opinion. It has some bangers, don't get me wrong, like Food Run is probably one of my favorite soundtracks from the game. But I remember thinking after
I legit can't even imagine what Food Run's music was, and I only did that level like a month ago. It may have something to do with how 90s and early 2000s kids grew up though. You didn't have a crap ton of games to pick from. I'd get about 4 games for Christmas and 1 or 2 games for my birthday, and then maybe 1 or 2 if I was, you know, passing tests or something at school throughout the year. So really on a normal year, I'd only get about 7 or 8 games to last me the entire year. So you played the crap out of every game that you were given to fill that time. And so I think it's more likely for you to have nostalgia and fond memories of music from your childhood because you had more time to play video games and you had fewer games to play. I've got 70 plus unplayed games on my Steam list, for example. You know, what are the odds I'm going to remember not only the music but the characters and the story from that kind of level of choice paralysis?
First playthrough of the game that there wasn't as many favorite soundtracks from the game, but I remember thinking after my first playthrough of the game that there wasn't as many memorable songs as, let's say, from The Wrath of Cortex or the original games. I think Crash Bash is just
Okay, that should do it for this video. There are a couple more unpopular opinions left in that video, but I don't want this video to get too long. So if you've enjoyed this and you'd like to see more videos like this while I'm recovering, then please let me know in the comments or on Discord or both. Ideally in the comments, it really helps the algorithm. Then yeah, let me know and I will react to more of your unpopular opinions and Lewis reacting to your unpopular opinions. I would say that me and Lewis overall agreed on like 95% of everything that was just said. So yeah, that was fun. It was kind of cool to see that we're on the same page. Anyway, thank you again for the new subscribers. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you on the next video, which is probably just going to be more highlight videos until, you know, I can actually move my arm.